Yeah, I think that TV show, there's no question. I mean, we all have to earn money to have a nice lifestyle and put food on the table and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's no thrill like that give back thrill. But really, at the end of the day, I think success for those of us who have got children, success is, having a look at them as they grow up and when they do grow up, following a nice, if you like, uh, rules of life, but just never, ever, 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 ever give up. And I've grabbed that little saying, and I think there's lots of motivational posters around the world. But I probably would say to you, if anyone was watching this, whether they're a small or large business, I would like to give them now an idea where they don't have to give me a cent, by the way. This is just a free piece of advice.
Hello, team. Today I'm going to break a little bit from my normal tradition and not do the usual intro setup. You will have heard me introduce our guest, Mr. John Dwyer. And to be honest, we just have way too much that I want to chat about with John, and therefore we're not going to delay it for a moment longer than necessary. So, look, here goes. We're going to dive straight in. Let's look at this dynamic world of marketing with the guru himself and the mastermind behind the Institute of Wow. He's known for his out-of-the-box strategies and legendary campaigns. So, look, JD, welcome to the ET project. Sir, the student is ready and the master has arrived.
That sounded like I might have written that. I tell you what, Wayne, I want to meet that guy. He sounds good.
I can't wait for our conversation. John, the first time you and I met, you were sitting in a car in a hospital car park, if you recall. I'm hoping your wife is okay and everyone's well.
Yeah, she was fine. It was just a small ailment, and you know what women are like, Wayne. They just complain about a broken fingernail, for goodness sake. I think that's all it was. I think that's all it was.
Where have we caught you at the moment? Where are you sitting? You're not
I'm
traveling.
in Broadbeach, yeah, Broadbeach, Australia, and which is on the Gold Coast. I'm sorry, in Australia, and I'm the father of six children, and we lived on acreage on the Gold Coast for quite a long time, a few acres, and of course, when the last one left home about a year ago, I said to my wife, "Listen, this is ridiculous. We're on 2.5 acres. We never see each other. We had to phone each other to find out what was going on." So, it's great to bring the Von Trapp family up on acreage, but we've got to get, near restaurants and cafes for a change. So we moved from the bush and now we're in the restaurant and, sort of cafe precinct of Broadbeach.
Well, we didn't realize, but we're neighbours. Well, I've got a place not too far from you in Robina. So,
Yeah.
yeah, as we were joking before, we might have to get you as our landlord to go and do some checking on the tenants. So,
Yeah, you can imagine me as the henchman walking in on the tenants. They'd only have to say boo and I'd run the other way. So I'm sorry, Wayne, I'm not qualified for that.
John, your journey through marketing and media, it's nothing short of extraordinary. And I'm wondering, as I'm sure you get asked this question all the time, but what was the thing that first ignited your passion around this whole marketing gig?
What's funny, it goes back to the school that I went to when I, was in my teens, and it was a Catholic de la Salle school in Kingsgrove in Sydney.
Right.
And the only reason I can roll off the tongue and answer this question is because I've been asked it a few times. And what happened is that when you got to year 10, which means you're probably 15, 16,
Mm.
you were asked to contribute to the school fete. And they'd had a fete, if you're watching this in America, a fair. They'd have a fair once a year to raise money for the school. And they'd have, throw the darts and, you'd dunk the teacher in the water if you hit the target and all this sort of stuff. And myself and a couple of other guys came up with a haunted house idea. And that was that we took over the De La Salle brothers, 8-car garage, and we turned it into a haunted house. Completely out of control for 15, 16-year-olds. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And we had fans in there whereby we'd got the girls to walk over a bridge and the fan would blow the dress up Marilyn Monroe style, and we'd jump out with masks and do all that. And I found that out of all of the things at the school fair that made money, this thing made 10 times the money that anything else made, because guess what? It had wow. I mean,
Yeah.
I look back on it now, the horror house that we built within the garage was pretty ordinary. But guess what? For the kids coming to a school fair, it had wow factor, and I thought there's something to this. And when I left school, I wanted to be an artist, but then I could see that the digital world was coming around. We had no idea all those years ago that AI would be here, but yeah, just the ordinary digital world was coming around. So I thought, look, being an artist is not the go. There's not going to be much money in that long term. So
Right.
that's when marketing, the broader spectrum of marketing might be the way to go.
Very, very nice. Has there been somebody that's influenced your career and your thinking, like from that early stage, or is this something that's just grown within you?
I've been a Disney freak for a long time.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, I probably went to Disneyland my first time, when I came out of school and I had a job for a year and at least had some money. I think I went over from Australia to Los Angeles to Disney, not just
Yeah.
to do Disney, we visited Disney probably when I was 20. And, you can't help but if you're creative and, you've got a creative bent to you, you cannot help but be impressed by
Yeah.
not just the wow, but the eye for detail of Disney. So, yeah, I'd say Walt Disney or Steven Spielberg or, George Lucas, any of those sorts
Hmm.
of people who have been experts when it comes to creativity.
My wife works at Disney, so she'll be very happy to hear you say that. But I'm also a big Disney fan, I have to say. I was going to say you would have, given your age and my age, probably the main Disney at that stage was in Orange County, right? In
Anaheim.
Los Angeles. So that would have been the only one. We look at the expanse of where it is now, and I'm based in Shanghai, so this is the newest Disney park that's opened, a few years ago. And to your point about the wow factor, this I think broke even. We're talking about a $6 or $7 billion investment, and I think it broke even in the first 12 months. So
Yeah,
it's
in fact, I was there a few years ago, and it's just like every other Disney park. The eye
it
for
is.
detail,
Yeah,
absolutely incredible.
yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Before
the only thing I found that with the Shanghai one is that standing on the lines, of course, to go onto the rides, because Chinese people tend to have umbrellas. Yeah, you could get killed by an umbrella.
absolutely. Before we get too deep into the conversation on marketing, because we're going to spend a lot of time on that, but you got into TV or entertainment after a couple of things in business. And I just want to say thank you for one of the programs you brought to air, which was Dreams Can Come True. This, I think it was about mid-90s, thereabouts. Some of the shows still stick in my memory. I mean, I was still in Australia at that time, and fantastic feel-good TV. It was probably the best way I can think of it. So thank you for that. Any specific episodes stand out to you still as you think back to it?
Yeah, Wayne, look, just a very quick prelude to the episodes that stand out, Christian, is that it all came about because, I had my own marketing business,
Yeah.
since my 20s. And at one stage, we had 20 odd staff, and somebody who was working for me when I was over in Disney in Anaheim made a big printing mistake on what we call a trading card product. So we would take out the licenses for The Lion King or Beauty and the Beast or Jurassic Park, whatever it might have been, and we'd do the bubblegum cards and we'd put them out through news agencies and drugstores and Kmart. And whilst I was away, someone made a big printing mistake and lost me 2.2 million. And so we lost everything. We lost our house. And basically the
Wow.
bank said, yeah, the bank said, listen, we're going to close you up at the end of the month. And so we cut our staff from 20 down to 10 and all that. And I said to the bank, look, I'm pitching for the rugby league bubblegum cards, which, would be equivalent to getting the NBA basketball card license, trading card license in America. That's how
Mm.
big it is. And I said, look, I'm confident that I would get it, which of course I wasn't. I was BSing. And there was 5 companies that were pitching for it. And I said, can you keep me open till the end of the month? And this was like the 10th of the month. They're about to close me up. And they said, okay, well, we'll keep you open till the 30th, but then we come in and lock the door. Now, I had been pitching for the rugby league bubblegum cards over and over and over. I'd ring the guy practically every day and annoy him, and he'd say, no, we haven't made the decision. It's between you and 5 other companies. Anyways, it's turned out the guy upstairs, I called into church one morning and just said a prayer to, God, and just said, look, is there any chance I could just get back on my feet? And if I do, I promise that I'll do something to inspire other people just to hang in there. And as it turned out, at 10 minutes to 5 on the day that the bank was coming with the locks to close the door, I get a call from the rugby league. And this shows you God has a really weird sense of humor, because it was right down to the wire. It's almost like a script itself, like a movie script. 10 minutes to 5, we're about to pack up and close up the business. I get a call from the decision maker of the rugby league to say that I had got the license. And of course, you can imagine I was elated, and talk about, by the skin of my teeth. And he said, you've got the license for the rugby league bubblegum cards on one condition. I said, anything. He said, you never ring me for the rest of your life. You're the most annoying bastard I've ever come across, right? We're great friends now. And as it turned out, we got the rugby league bubblegum license. And because I'm a marketer, we gave out sample cards with the Sunday newspapers, and there was the football show on TV, gave out samples. And we got some of the big football stars like Mal Meninga to promote them. And we made the whole $2 million back in one football season. So therefore, we got back on our feet. And I said to my wife at the end of coming back pretty quickly in one footy season, I said, look, I've got to keep my promise to the big guy upstairs. And so we pitched the TV show to Channel 10 in Australia, and it was all about hanging in there and making dreams come true. And the show was all about you pitching a dream to us for not you, but for someone else that you knew was needy. Right. And as it turned out, whether they had if they needed a house, we gave them a house. And I mean that, we're talking about big dreams like that. Yeah. If they wanted to meet a special celebrity or sports star, we did it. And one that stands out was a little boy in a wheelchair, suffered from spina bifida, and he tried to kill himself because he suffered from spina bifida. And his parish priest contacted us and said, thank God he wasn't successful in killing himself, but he's a mad basketball player in a wheelchair, and his dream of all dreams. And by the way, he was not a basketballer in a wheelchair when he tried to kill himself, but because he didn't, someone got into his ear and told him to take up wheelchair basketball. Right. He became a member of the Australian team within 6 months and scored most of their points every time they had a game. His dream of all dreams was just to get a Michael Jordan autograph. It was the last year that Michael Jordan was playing, and you wouldn't believe it. The guy upstairs works in funny ways. I sent a fax in those days to Michael Jordan's office and said, is there any chance if we brought him over, he could go to the game? Michael Jordan told me when we got there in Chicago that he only visited his office once every month, and that particular day he was walking past the fax machine when my fax came out. He picked it out and read it. He gets 1 million requests a week back in those days. So we slipped through the net. He read it and told his secretary, make this one happen. And we surprised that little boy and took him to Chicago, not just to see a game. Michael Jordan came out of the kitchen of the Michael Jordan restaurant with a birthday cake singing happy birthday. It was the little boy's 15th birthday, the day he met Michael Jordan.
Quite incredible, yeah. Very incredible.
I'm sorry, I know stretch the story, but the story means nothing unless you hear the backstory.
No, but it's beautiful. I mean, it's the show itself was so well done. Daryl Braithwaite from his background as well, being the host of the show, just everything worked beautifully. And kudos to everybody involved, I think. So very nice.
And can I say this? You know how like you hear sometimes these celebrities are sort of in a world of their own. They're only interested in themselves. Throughout the period of putting this TV show on every Sunday night, and it beat 60 Minutes in the ratings, would you believe, which was on the other network. So that's But people tell you bad news sells. No. Good news sells better. And try convincing a journalist that, but it's difficult. But good news sells. This thing just had a huge audience. And when we asked and the TV, the channel said to us, you have to have celebrities. And the show was not built on having to have celebrities. It was actually built on just doing a nice thing for someone in need. That's what it was. But because it's a TV network, they said, look, you've got to have celebrities. And of course, there was no shortage of dreams that people wanted to meet Spielberg and all this sort of. And as it turned out, I can name Spielberg, I can name Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, Princess Di, would you believe, Paul Hogan, Crocodile Dundee, The X-Files, Meatloaf. I could go on and on and on. All of these people, the moment we asked them, would they help us by meeting someone, every single one of them said yes in a heartbeat.
Yeah. It's sort of, if you look at where we are at the moment, it restores a little bit of faith in humanity, I have to say. So very nice.
I'll tell you what, it was the best job I've ever had. And by the way, people say to me, oh, that would have made you a fortune. No, when I was pitching at Channel 10, the guy said to me from Channel 10, he was crying because we made a pilot which was pretty emotional, and he said, I'll take it, X number of episodes. He said, what do you charge? And I said, I had no idea. I just want to keep a promise to the big guy upstairs. I said, for an hour show, 142,000. Well, of course, I just pulled that out of where. He said, we can get 90210 and The Simpsons for 25,000. That's a lot of money. And I felt like saying, oh, well, give me 25K. So anyway, as it turned out, we spent 175K on every episode. And I got 142K back. So it was not done for the money. I just
Right.
had to pay back.
Wow. Wow. Incredible story, John. I mean, thank you for doing it and sharing it. Let's get back into the marketing. I mean, this is where the real fame lies. You've created some of the most unique marketing campaigns, I think, at least in my limited circle. But Jerry Seinfeld, probably one of the biggest, one of the greatest claims to fame. What was the creative process for you behind that particular campaign?
Wayne, look, I come from the mindset of whether it's a corporate business or whether it's a fish and chip shop, that if you don't have a wow factor and you are a me too business, in other words, your solar panels are very similar to the solar panels from your competitor, okay? And in Australia, as you know, the big supermarket chains are Coles and Woolworths. They're very, very similar. I was the national marketing manager for the Woolworths organisation in my 20s. Tell you, if you basically squint your eyes and walk into a Coles or walk into a Woolworths supermarket, they're pretty much the same. And so my role was to create artificial wow factors. Apple doesn't need me. Apple's iPhone, it's got organic wow factors. There's nothing like it, and so therefore they don't need me. But 99% of other businesses that have a product which is very similar to their competitors, yeah, they need my sort of thinking or someone like me. And at Woolworths, what we would do, this was pre-digital, we would actually take ideas out of Tesco in London, and it would be, for example, if every time you spent $10, you'd get a stamp and you'd lick it and put it on a saver sheet. And when you saved up so many stamps, you got cookware and glassware for ridiculous prices, right? And then we got into scratch ticket games, whereby every time you spent $10, you got a scratch ticket. And of course, these days, Woolworths and Coles in Australia had borrowed from McDonald's Happy Meal toy philosophy. And if you spend $30, you get a toy. Okay, so pest for power. If you have an audience with children, then use children as one of your agents. I can tell you, having 6 children and not being able to say no, they are the biggest influencer for mum and dad. So what happened is that I had a bank as a client, as a building society actually called the Greater Building Society. And this was some years back. And they were the 250th biggest business in Australia. So they're not small, but they were certainly not the Commonwealth Bank. And the Commonwealth Bank in Australia is very much like Wells Fargo. If you're listening to this in America, it's the big bank. And so this smaller bank was a challenger brand. And if you're a challenger brand, then you should do things differently. And I said to them, look, I'm doing some TV commercials for a travel discount company. How about what I do is introduce you guys, and instead of giving away that 1% honeymoon rate to everyone when they get a home loan, which every bank does, like everyone does that. Why don't you give that 1% honeymoon rate to the travel company and they'll give you a vacation that's worth double that because they're a wholesaler. And they said, oh, smart aleck, we'll give it a shot. Guess what? In 3 months of coming on television in Australia and online saying, get a home loan from the Greater and get a free vacation, they doubled their home loans in 3 months. They tripled them in 12 months. We're talking billions, absolute. And this idiot who you're talking to charge a consultancy fee instead of a percentage, right? I'm a moron. I'm a complete moron. And about 3 or 4 years into this unbelievably successful promotion, we got Seinfeld to become the spokesman. And so therefore we took it up a level, and I won't bore you with all the details of how I got to him, but again, it was very similar to the rugby league story. When I asked him, did he say yes? He said, I figured that if I didn't say yes, you'd never go away. So he said, you're the most annoying person. And I said, well, Jerry, persistence beats intelligence. I'm not that smart, but I am persistent. He said, yeah. So we got Seinfeld to do the ads. And once, we got that, then I'd fly backwards and forwards to New York over those 3 years. And, we made it easy for Jerry. We mocked up a Greater Building Society bank in an empty shop not far away from where he lives. And he stood outside and did, stand up. But yeah, that was a really, really big curve because every TV network around the world covered it. I mean, your Seinfeld, of course, had not done anything on TV for a long while. And I think, Wayne, for anyone listening to this, who are saying, oh, yeah, but that's impossible. No, it's not. I mean, this guy had only ever done 2 advertising campaigns, one for American Express and one for Microsoft. This Aussie bank was a little bit smaller than those 2 big businesses, but because he liked the idea, we slipped through the cracks. And it's all about, for those guys who have got more money than God, then it's all about the idea.
Right. But where do they come from? Where do the ideas come from, John? Like, I can sit here and I can brainstorm. That's one of my passions. But coming up with that killer idea, is it innate, or do you have a process?
No, I think it's innate. I think it is. And look, the thing is that there's only a very, very small percentage of people who I've met in my career that are creative but clever creative. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm talking about other people. People will come up with ideas, but whether they're practical ideas is another thing. And I have only come across a handful, and so therefore I think it's something you are born with. I don't know that you can learn creativity, but what you can learn is to hang around people who are why not? What I found is that I'm trying to convince my six millennials this. I made a mistake in my 20s and early 30s where I hung around people who were accountancy, operationally minded left-brainers. And every time I come up with a crazy idea, they go, oh, why? Oh, why would you do that? When I started hanging around other people who were right-brained, they'd say, oh, why not? Yeah, give that a shot, JD. Yeah. I think the best example of the sort of people I like to hang around with these days is a very quick case study. We lived in a little country town in the Hunter Valley, about 2 hours north of Sydney at one stage when we had little children, and there was a hairdresser in town who knew what I did. And she said to Gail, my wife, listen, I've been here for 18 years, and wouldn't you believe it? Someone's come from the big smoke and opened up a hairdressing salon directly opposite me in this little country town. This town was like Mayberry and from Andy Griffiths, right?
Yeah.
And so therefore, she said she'd stolen all my male customers because men don't care. Basically, they had $10 haircuts for men, and she charged $50 or $60. And she said, all my men don't care. They go to the butcher for a haircut. Yeah. They've all gone to this other competitive across the road. And she says to my wife, can you get John to come up with one of that wow crap that he's got, So anyway, she said, I think I might have to drop my prices, to $9 for a men's haircut because they're charging 10. I said, no, don't do that. Give me a day. Anyway, cut long story short, 2 days later, we put a sandwich board outside her shop, which got every single one of the men back again. And the sandwich board outside her hairdresser, opposite the one that was selling customers, said, we fix $10 haircuts.
I love that. I love that. Very nice. Very nice.
So the wow factor doesn't have to necessarily be a Happy Meal toy. I mean, most of the time, that's what we say to people. Look, if you don't have a unique selling point from your competitors, come up with a Happy Meal toy. That is an example of not necessarily a Happy Meal toy, but you actually use a wow factor to persuade people to think twice about getting their haircut across the road.
How much does culture, I mean, you've had exposure globally and a lot of international clients, and I'm wondering how much does culture shape marketing strategies as you move around with different clients?
Pretty much not at all. Yeah, pretty much not at all. What would happen is that if I was dealing with a franchise business, and let's just say it was a carpet cleaning franchise, and we would give them one of these Happy Meal toys sort of ideas, get 3 rooms of your house, basically cleaned, and we'll give you a free vacation, okay? And let's just say it worked its head off everywhere else, but the guy up in Townsville, North Queensland said, oh, look, the reason it didn't work here is because of the demographic profile of the, and he'd, I'd get the violin out. That was just all crap. It didn't work because he was a lazy so-and-so, and he didn't do it properly. And, the thing is, look at McDonald's. I mean, you can get a hamburger from McDonald's anywhere in the world and it will look and taste the same, okay? They've been able to, and, most franchises are the same thing. So the culture doesn't have a lot to do with it. Really, at the end of the day, someone in China or America or Australia is still going to get excited about a wow factor. And most of the time, that wow factor is going to be a Happy Meal toy.
And I was going to ask you about networking and the collaboration side, but I'm guessing the answer is going to be very similar. So networking for you is not a big issue as well. It's all about this ability to create the wow. Yeah,
look, I have to say that I've been a terrible networker. I mean, I've got some skills. I'm not really a normal man. I feel embarrassed to say that I would go to Bunnings, which is a gigantic hardware chain in Australia, that if you're watching this anywhere else, you won't know what it is, but it's like a Costco, but a hardware version. because I'm the opposite from MacGyver. I don't know what to do with a hammer. I don't know how to fix a hinge on a door. I just go to this Bunnings hardware store on a Saturday and walk around for an hour just to feel like a man. Okay, so therefore, I'm just hopeless, and my wife will back me up on that. I'm absolutely hopeless. And I've been hopeless at another thing, and that is networking. I have to say to you that, I've become in the last 6 months, excuse the language, but a podcast slut. I've done more podcasts than I've had baked dinners in the last 6 months because it's a wonderful way of, and I enjoy them because, having a host like you, it's very comfortable, it's conversational. It's not like a webinar where you go to the next slide and the next slide, and everyone knows they're going to get something at the end. I just really, really enjoy it. But I'm not good at networking. I wished I had been, but I've got no excuse other than because if you've got 6 kids, it was difficult to probably take a lot of time off to go to all the breakfasts and things like that.
Right.
But one I did join in America, which was good, it was called the Joe Polish Genius Network. And that was very good. They had a lot of really, sort of cool people involved there. It wasn't cheap. It was 25K US to join. So my wife was real pleased about that. Because we live in Australia, I had to fly to Phoenix, Arizona 3 times a year. She was so happy. But I have to say to you, for anyone watching or listening, don't make the same mistake that I've made. Yeah, join as many of these networking groups as you possibly can, because, as the saying goes, I think it was Jim Rohn that came up with the saying, and that was, you are the average of the 5 people, around you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've had so many amazing moments. You've met so many global superstars. You've had some massive accounts, Seinfeld being one of those. But was there a standout moment so far in your career? I mean, your career's not over by any stretch, but so far in the career, has there been something that really stands out?
Yeah, I think that TV show, there's no question. I mean, we all have to earn money to have a nice lifestyle and put food on the table and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's no thrill like that give back thrill. I mean, I did that because I had asked the guy upstairs for some help, and talk about a quick comeback from, a couple of million down in just one football season. So I had to, pay back. And I have to say to you, the thrill that I got out of that was like we were Santa Claus. I mean, who doesn't want to be Santa
For
Claus?
sure, for sure.
And it was just wonderful. And one thing that does stand out is not necessarily the Michael Jordan dream. There was one which we had Meatloaf involved, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful story. I'll just cut it down to 30 seconds. A little girl, 5 years of age, was in the kitchen at her home and spilled boiling hot water on top of herself. She leant up to get something off the kitchen bench, and it came up, and she had third-degree burns everywhere. And they put her in the burns unit in the hospital, and this poor little girl was screaming and screaming and screaming. Hospital did everything to try and stop her from screaming, whether it be Disney movies or the Wiggles cartoons or whatever it might be. Nothing stopped her screaming until one day the nurse mistakenly pressed the button on on the tape recorder, and they played a Meatloaf song. And the little girl stopped screaming because of Meatloaf song, right? Probably many years later, you would argue people were screaming because of the Meatloaf song. But anyway, this little girl,
Exactly.
it was miraculous. You heard about the Melbourne, grand final too, yeah. So anyway, as it turned out, her mother wrote to us and said, "Is there any chance we could get a Meatloaf autograph?" Well, you wouldn't believe it. The following week, Meatloaf was in Australia doing concerts. So
Wow.
we contacted him and told him the story. And guess what this guy did? He said, "Bring that little girl to the backstage." It was in front of like 20,000 people in the stadium. And just before the show started, we took the little girl backstage, and because she was out of hospital by this stage,
Yeah.
and the cutest little 5-year-old you've ever seen, he picks the little girl up and she looks at him, and we captured all on camera. And she looks at him and said, "Oh, thank you, Mr. Meatloaf. You made me feel better." And tears came to his eyes, and he said to her, "Darling, you are now making me feel better." Just wonderful.
Yeah,
Just
beautiful.
wonderful.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I tell you what, doing that TV show where you surprise people with, homes or cars, or they've met relatives that served, 20 years. We went through a fortune in Kleenex. But the cameramen, who are big, bulky guys, they're all crying, like it was just a wonderful, wonderful part of my life. I loved it. Yeah.
Probably on the back of that, how do you actually measure success? It could be very tangible or intangible, subjective, objective. What's your approach?
Yeah, yeah, and it's not money. I mean, the thing is that, we all know that it's handy to have a nice bank account because you can go on that nice vacation and you might be able to, spend some money on some nice things. But
Mm.
really, at the end of the day, I think success for those of us who have got children, success is, having a look at them as they grow up and when they do grow up, following a nice, if you like, uh, rules of life. And last time I checked, none of our six are in jail just yet. So therefore, I think we did something right. For those people who don't have children, that it will be probably friendship and those that they have around them. That's a gift, of course, which is wonderful. But I think if I was to speak for most parents, I guess the success to all parents is seeing their children grow up and turn out to be nice people.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm on. I was going to ask you something about that, but I'll leave that go for the moment. You mentioned earlier in the conversation we were talking about some of the challenges, and the trading card issue was one of them. Everybody has their ups and downs in careers. Was that the biggest challenging moment throughout your career so far?
It probably was the biggest, but there's been a shitload of others. Challenging, I think, is every entrepreneur's middle name.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, it's been a roller coaster ride. It's never a merry-go-round. There was a story which I saw some years ago, and it was just a wonderful story for all of us entrepreneurs, okay? And it was about Sir Winston Churchill when he was Prime Minister of England. He
Yeah.
went back to the school that he went to when he was a child, and the little boy asked a question and said, "Mr. Prime Minister, any advice for us kids?" And the kids were all 9 or 10 years of age. And Sir Winston Churchill gave a speech which is known as the Never Give Up speech. But the essence of it was that he just said to this little boy and all the kids in the classroom, just remember as you go through life, you're going to get kicked in the guts, okay? But just never, ever, 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 ever give up, And I've grabbed that little saying, and I think there's lots of motivational posters around the world you probably see with that particular saying in it. I've given that to a number of my friends when they've been kicked in the guts, and they've all been very appreciative of it because really, at the end of the day, no matter what happens to you, if you never, ever, ever, ever give up, then there can only be one result. I mean, if you
Sure.
keep on, I always liken it to when, and you probably grew up with this, Wayne, as well, is the big deal when I was an 8 or 9 or 10 year old where they'd blow up Fred Flintstone sort of dolls that, just had air inside them and you'd punch them and they come back up again. Yes. And they were like a vampire. You could never keep them down. And as it turned out, I always say to people, look, if you don't give up, like you never ever give up, and I know it's hard, it's not easy, but if you never ever give up, there can only be one result. You've got to come out the other end sooner or later.
Yeah. We were talking just before we hit record, and we were talking about one of the programs you offer, or you had, I think it was last year or this year, and you'll have to tell me the name, but around big ideas. And just the marketing landing page, it was so inviting and so gripping that I'm sitting there saying, what a bitch that I've missed this opportunity. So I mean, a testament to the power of what you're doing. But I can imagine we have a lot of small business owners listening to this episode as well. Like, where can they get some of your passion, your wow moment? You have programs, you have packages, I'm sure.
Yeah, we do. But look, I'm so rich these days, Wayne. I've got my own private island, my own airline. That I don't need to give out any website URL. You know what I love about these people when you see some of these podcasts, and it's complete BS. And I know because I've met them behind the stage when you're doing seminars and conferences and stuff. But they go, oh look, I'm wealthy. I've got all of these motor cars, and I've got my private. I'm only doing this to give back. And yeah, yeah, right. Yes, right. No, look, I can certainly invite anyone if they'd like to have a look at my stuff. Go to basically theinstituteofwow.com, and when you go there, not only can you watch little 5 minute segments of that TV show if you want to get a box of tissues, because if you look at the menu bar and where it says JD bio, my name's John Dwyer, but I get JD. The Wow TV show is there. So if you ever wanted to, just feel good about life and you wanted to watch a few of these little episodes of dreams coming true, then that's there. But the page that you should go to is the case studies page, because what I've done, Wayne, is that I just figure that the best way to measure anyone is by their history. And it doesn't matter whether they're 21 or 81, have a look at their history, because that'll probably give you an idea of what the future might be like if you do stuff with them. Okay. And so therefore I've got a case studies page on the instituteofwow.com that goes on forever. There would have to be, I don't know, just dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of case studies. And so therefore it's a swipe file from heaven if anyone's looking for an idea. But I probably would say to you, if anyone was watching this, whether they're a small or large business, I would like to give them now an idea where they don't have to give me a cent, by the way. This is just a free piece of advice. It's using Facebook to get leads. And you know, and I know, Wayne, that when you're dealing with social media now, because the big boys, the corporates have got involved with Facebook and Instagram, then of course the price went up.
Yep.
Back when I were growing up, the little newspaper that got thrown over the fence, it was basically butcher and bakers in their advertising. But when Woolworths and Coles and all the big businesses got involved, the advertising rate for that newspaper went up.
Yep. And
that's what's happened with Facebook now. Of course, Zuckerberg is charging more on a cost per lead because, Coca-Cola's on there now. And I've worked out a way, by accident, by the way, I wish I could take credit for being smart, but this was an accident, of using Facebook and getting more leads than you can handle every single day of the year. And what it is a contest formula. And it came about because a guy saw me speaking at a conference who owned an aluminium fence business, aluminum fence if you're in America. And he comes up to me at the end and he said, "Oh, JD, look, I've got an aluminum fence business, which replaces all the old paling fences that are falling down with old homes. But this Facebook stuff doesn't work." I said, "Well, let me have a look at your ad." And sure enough, Wayne, he had a picture of an aluminium fence. In other words, features, not benefits. I said, "Mate, if features were to sell stuff, then the weight loss companies would just show a bowl of rice. They don't. They show the lady who's overweight, and then 4 weeks later she looks like a supermodel. You want to get out of the way, we'll fix this." So he got out of the way, and we held on Facebook a contest to win an aluminium or aluminum fence. Okay, we could zero it in on all of the older suburbs that had 30-year-old homes and their back fences are falling over. And we just ran the ugliest back fence in Australia contest. You had to take a photo of your falling down crappy fence and post it to our page for the chance to win an aluminum fence. Mate, he got 6 months worth of leads in 3 days. I mean, we're talking, and these people are not just leads, they're red hot leads. They put their hand up, took a photo of their crappy fence. So we started doing that for kitchen renovations, the ugliest kitchen in Australia or America, wherever it might have been, and the thing just took off. So what we've done in the last 6 months is created a program for businesses whereby we either show them and they do it themselves. If they want us to do it, we can do it, whereby they hold a contest on Facebook and they basically give away their product or service. So if you're a dentist, for example, you'd give away Invisalign, the invisible braces. You are only going to get people with crooked teeth who are going to enter that contest. So they're not leads, they're red hot leads.
Yes.
We had one last a fortnight, only 2 weeks ago. It's a walking frame business for older people, and they're wheelie walkers, they call them. I was insulted by the guy who owns the business. He asked, did I want to do a contra? I said to him, "I hope you die in your sleep," So anyway, what we did is we ran a contest, and still running it because it's gone nuts, for 70 and 80-year-old people. Guess what? We ran the contest. Would you like to win a wheelie walker, which is like a $500 walking frame thing for seniors? He got 822 leads in the first week at, wait for it, $40 spend a day. That's 35 cents a lead, 822 leads in a week, all from people in their 70s and 80s who are screaming, "I want a walker." So guess, talk about a hot lead to follow up. He said he can't get to them. So we've got an AI robot ringing them now to follow them up and say, "Look, you didn't win, but we've got a special deal for you this week." The robot has a 32% close rate. So therefore the robot's getting a better conversion rate than a human. By the way, just if you don't mind me giving a plug, if anyone wants to see how this works, and you don't need to give me any money, it's explained how it works. Just go to fbcontestformula.com. FB for Facebook, of course, fbcontestformula.com. And again, you don't need to give me anything. The idea is there with case studies and case studies. You can just swipe it and do it yourself if you want.
You've also, you showed me a book just before we hit record. It's probably the biggest book that I've ever seen, John, but typical of you and the Institute of Wow. You have it handy there. You can just pull it up. And
yes, I'm sorry. I'm a show off, but I'm also an idiot because this is the book. Okay, so therefore I can't help myself. It is ridiculous. And a buddy of mine, when I was doing the seminar circuit, and these days it's more podcasts and webinars because, you don't have to jump on a plane to reach people now. But he said to me, "Listen, if you're going to write a book, I guess you better do something different." And that struck with me. And I thought, yeah, okay, well, it's called the Institute of Wow. So I better do a wow effective book. This is ridiculous because it's 300 pages of successful what we call direct response, which is what we are. We're a direct response agency. So it's got 300 pages of examples in there that have worked. I didn't put the ones in here that didn't work. I thought that would not be real smart. And so we're going to give this to you, by the way. So therefore, there's 300 pages of this thing. It's the size of a tabloid newspaper. And I'm going to give you the digital copy, and I'll give you the URL in just a second. But when we used to give this away with our coaching program, Wayne, just for a joke, I got them to sign a disclaimer which said that if they were reading it in bed and fell asleep and broke a rib, they wouldn't sue me. You know, it's pretty damn heavy. And this book here costs $420 to print, so I can't give you the real book. But
Wow.
yeah, if you want that for free, just go to wowmanifesto.com/gift, as in Christmas gift. So it's wowmanifesto.com/gift. And it's a swipe file from heaven. I know I'm showing off, but you'll see that there'll be ideas in there that you can just swipe and use for your business. And by the way, Wayne, the reason I'm doing all of this is because my auntie Teresa told me to, live to give. And you would know her as Mother Teresa, but she was my auntie, and she said, look, live to give.
Ah, dear me. Thank you, by the way, John. Very, very generous, and we'll definitely link everything that you've mentioned in the show notes and to your website. Yeah, the website is an experience in itself. So anyone listening, make sure you go to the link that we put in the show notes and have a look at John's site. It's truly an experience. John, you mentioned AI. Where do you see the future, in particular for marketing, with the current digital explosion?
It's unbelievable. It is really unbelievable. And even for baby boomers like me, jump onto it. I mean, obviously, I've had to jump on it from the beginning because regardless of whether I'm a baby boomer, the thing is we're a marketing agency. I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, Wayne, I had a company, one of our clients who is a tradie company, and he provides electricians to put air conditioning into your house, and he provides plumbers and so forth, right? And he said to me yesterday, listen, is there any chance at all you could give us an idea for an animated logo? He said something like Bob the Builder, and he said, that's what we want. And I said, yeah, sure, okay. And just to show off, I just got to ChatGPT, of course. Just the prompt that I gave it was, look, I'm looking for a Bob the Builder sort of cartoon character. Needs to be wearing high vis gear with a hard hat, blah, 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 blah. And of course, as you know, 15 seconds later, the best Disney style animation you've ever seen. I send it off to this guy who's about my vintage. So he can't spell AI. He wouldn't know. He wouldn't know what it is. And I think he had a heart attack. I got him on Zoom. He's only just learning how to get on Zoom. And I said, here it is. Like, we're talking 5 minutes later, and he goes, how did you do that? I said, because my middle name is David Copperfield. All right. So therefore, so that's just how strong it is. We have just set up for tradies, would you believe? Because that's, yeah, the tradies can't answer the phone. They're on top of a roof putting a solar panel in, or they've got their hand down the toilet. They cannot get to the phone. And so we are just launching now. We spent 6 months on it, but we're just launching now what we call AI Genie. And we searched on, crazy domains and everywhere, of course, to see if we could come up with a unique AI name, but good luck. But ours is called AI Genie. And what we do is that we answer the phone for, it's a market. You might say, well, you're a marketing company. How's this marketing big time? Because we can answer the phone for these tradies when they're on top of a roof. And not only will the robot answer the phone, and because it sounds like a human, 9 out of 10 people would not have a clue, it can sell. When someone rings up to electrical services, for example, and they can't answer the phone, then our AI Genie will answer the phone. It can be a man or a lady, and let's say it's a she, and she says, what can I do to help you? And the person says, look, I need an air conditioner and 2 ceiling fans, and she will book the appointment for whatever the calendar availabilities are. And so when that trader gets down from the roof and checks his, messages, not only has she answered the phone, she's booked in 3 appointments for tomorrow, and she's booked the appointments close to each other geographically so that he doesn't lose time going from one to the other. That's how smart it is. Crazy.
I'm going to have to. Is it released yet, or are you still in the release?
We're releasing it actually next week, and it's basically just AIGenie.com. Yeah.
I will definitely be looking for it myself. Future aspirations, John. What's the future look like?
I want to become an American and take over when Trump throws a towel in, just for fun, because that election was just so much good fun. It was really when people ask me, with my marketing hat on, how did that guy make a comeback? I said, oh, come on. I mean, it wasn't even a contest. I mean, the Democrats, God love them, but their marketing was just woeful. It was just awful. This guy is a marketing machine. You can love him or hate him. He's a terrible show off, and there's lots of his personality traits which you just don't like because no one likes a show off. Fancy me saying that, no one likes a show off. But yeah, just from a marketing point of view, it was just game over long ago. I mean, he's just a marketing machine. So yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to go to America and be involved in that. That would just be good fun. But in all seriousness, yeah, my aspirations are, yeah, look, I can't throw the towel in and retire because the thing is that I don't like golf. I hate jigsaw puzzles. Um, if I'm reading a book that's not an autobiography, I'll read the autobiography about Walt Disney or Richard Branson or whoever it might be. But if it's a book, like my wife will throw a fiction book in front of me, I'll just go to the back couple of pages and find out how it finishes. I mean, I say to her, I've got the attention span of a goldfish. I'm not going to read a book unless it's an autobiography that's, obviously going to be inspiring. So yeah, I'm not. I've got ADHD on steroids, so therefore, there's no use me throwing this in. I enjoy doing it, and as you can tell, because there's a bit of sarcasm and wit with it, I enjoy the performing as well. So yeah, I think I'll stick with this for a while. None of our kids have gone into this game. They've all become school teachers or they've become accountants and all sorts of other things. So it's not like I'm going to hand the baton on, but I quite enjoy it. So therefore, I'll probably stick with it for a while longer.
Any legacy that you're hoping to leave behind with the actual institute, like the business itself?
Yeah, look, I haven't, as you can tell, just even in this relatively short interview, because my attention span is so small. No, I haven't even thought about that. I have not thought about that. Isn't that terrible? Where you want some inspirational quote from someone who you've been talking to for 45 minutes. They go, no, no, I don't have anything inspiring to say. I think probably though, all sarcasm and jokes aside, what I'd love to probably leave behind is that everything starts with the big idea. And I said this on another interview I did recently when they asked a similar question. I just said, look, AI is brilliant and it is fantastic, but unless you've got Elon Musk style thinking, it's useless because if you don't prompt, ChatGPT or Midjourney or whoever it might be, whatever platform you're using, if you don't provide it with the prompts, then you won't get the answer at all. So AI is brilliant, but it's only as brilliant as the person who's actually giving it the task. And I found that if I had said to that ChatGPT yesterday, I need a logo for an electrical company, I would have been still there now because it hasn't worked out. If I said to them, look, it needs to be like Bob the Builder, it needs to have a hard hat, it needs to have high vis, and sometimes I even do a quick sketch, then of course, everything then comes back the right way. So I would say that, if you're in business or you're running a business, really at the end of the day, everything starts with the big idea.
JD, wonderful conversation. I mean, thank you for brightening my morning. It's early morning for me. It's a little bit later for you, but where's the best place for people to go and connect with you and understand more about what you're doing?
Look, I'll give my personal email address, Wayne, because that's the best way to reach me. So that's John at theinstituteofwow.com. And obviously John is John. So John at theinstituteofwow.com. And of course, again, that website, if you wanted to go and have a look at the website, then it's theinstituteofwow.com.
Very nice. So I truly have enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for being a guest on the ET Project. All the best for the future. And if you ever are thinking about changing, I am looking for that property manager. So please keep me in mind.
No, Wayne, well, thank you very much. It's been a lovely conversation. I appreciate you putting up with my silly jokes. Just to finish on this, when I'm doing seminars, if my wife is at the back of the room because she rolls her eyes because she's heard this 1 million times, I'll make up a story which is not true. I'll say, look, it's my wedding anniversary, and everybody claps because they think it's true. And I say, yeah, look, we've been, we've been married. It's like we've been happily married for 30 years. And of course they all cheer. I say, been married for 35 years, but happily married for 30 of them, right? So And then one of my kids came to one of these things recently because I don't think they even knew what I did for a living. And at the end of the seminar, he said to me, Dad, that marketing stuff that you told all the 50 or 60 business owners in the room, that's all pretty good stuff. And I couldn't believe I was getting a compliment from your own child. I said, well, thank you. That's great. He said, oh, but one thing. I thought, oh, here we go. I said, yeah, what's that? He said, I'd stop the dad jokes. You're not really funny. Then I knew he was telling the truth.
All the best, John.
You too. See you, Wayne.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.